Okay. So the first question, what would you change to enhance your learning experience within the course? Who would like to share what was discussed in your breakout groups? Bless you, Jocelyn. No, I said bless you.
Oh, thank you.
What would you change to enhance the learning experience in the course? What did y'all talk about? I know y'all talk, did you talk about the breakout questions? So, okay, so if you talked about them, what did you discuss? Go ahead, Jay.
I only said for the topics that we learn on like the lecture, I think I would like to know more about how it relates, like correlates to like modern day, like how the history has its aspects with today's society, and that's basically it.
Okay. Um, so what I hear there is just more of a contemporary analysis, right? So would you like to hear more from me as it pertains from a contemporary analysis, or just having the contemporary analysis more centered in the conversation?
I think both.
Okay.
I think that, and maybe if anyone else like had any uh like relations to what they think on today's society.
Okay.
But other than that, it's all good.
So maybe what I'll also do is begin to add contemporary analysis as part of the breakout questions on a more regular basis. So that way that gets us as a whole thinking in terms of contemporary analysis. Uh, Anyone else? What would you change to enhance the learning experience within the course? I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not going to retaliate against you. This is a genuine inquiry to know how we can make this better for you, right? I said at the beginning of the course that I don't believe that this is my course and I'm the instructor. You're here to listen to me. I believe it's our course, right? So I cannot say that it's our course and not have moments of check-in with you all or allow you to make your input into the course. So again, this is a genuine inquiry. If there's things that you would do, please say so. Taylor?
I'd say like I think it'd be cool to hear more like personal stories from people, just like their experiences, because like obviously a lot of us are younger, and so hearing it from people our age would be like nice. Like obviously like we're learning a lot from you, but like hearing it from like a different like generation, like a variety of like generations would be like help with like the understanding and stuff.
Okay. And so Taylor, just so I'm clear, you're saying I'm hearing this from the standpoint of more you're hearing to hear from students in the courses, personal experiences more. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Anyone else before we move on to the second question?
Uh, I would probably just say for me, I probably would need to take more time in reading material and kind of reflecting back to what I'm reading because sometimes I'll read stuff and I don't quite understand it. And then so I'll be thinking on a pattern what I read, then I run into a sentence or a statement, and then I kind of like don't know what to do or what to connect to. And
Okay.
so it's more or less me personally not knowing. And so when I get stuck like that, I would like some help with getting unstuck.
So this is what I'll ask of you, Don. Use your journal and that question portion of your journal so we could as a group like iron those things out because I guarantee you you're not the only one who gets stuck like that, right? So jot those little things down in your journal and then bring those things to class. And then what we could do, either myself or as a collective, right? We could begin to unpack those things because I guarantee you, you're not the only one that gets stuck. Like I want to reemphasize to you all, like this material is PhD level material, right? Like a good portion of this I pulled directly from my coursework at CGU. So is not meant for you all to read in one fell swoop and understand it. It took me several times reading it and several times teaching it to have a full conceptualization of what this is, right? And I do that on purpose. This is like what I call a pedagogical strategy, right? I do this because I believe that you all are smarter than you think you are in some regards, right? So don't feel any kind of way about not being able to read in one read and know what it is, or having questions, right? Again, this is why I have you do that question portion of your journal. Like it's intended for that very same reason. So again, just do for me, Don. Do me the favor of writing those things down, and then either is whether you hitting me to the chat or verbalizing it in the class, we could begin to kind of unpack those things. And I offer that not only to Don, but to everyone, right? Like this is what this lecture space is for you to begin to kind of iron out and understand some of the things that aren't as clear to you in the readings, right? Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
again, this is not just to you, but for the whole class, right? Like this is how I'm thinking about how we should approach these readings. Okay. Anyone else have things that they would like to change to enhance their learning experience? Go ahead, Tatiana.
Some people finna hate me for this, but I don't care. So I get really bad test anxiety, and
Okay.
so I feel like implementing homework would be nice just to kind of balance out the grade, like even like maybe like one every few weeks, just a little something, just because for me, like I get really bad test anxiety. So although I know the material, I might not be able to translate that into my, my test scores. So I feel like implementing maybe even like one or two homework assignments like a month would be beneficial just to help like balance those things out.
And this is in terms of your grade, correct? Is what you're
Yeah.
thinking? Okay. So keep a few things in mind, right? The the midterm is not the majority of your grade. Truth be told, what's going to be the majority of the grade is going to be your presentation at the end of the semester. So that's going to serve as a balance point for the midterm. You also have your fish bowls and that form of participation that you're being graded on also. Far as your test anxiety, I can't speak for you personally, but what I do know from studies and research, a large part of the test anxiety is built around time and feeling pressured around time constraints. Which you'll know for the test in this class, you'll have like 4 days to do it. So there's no real time constraints on it. In fact, and I was going to go into this later into the course, but you'll have 5 essay questions, right? And I'm asking you to answer 3 of the 5 questions. And what I advise you all to do is take one day and answer one question. That way, that reduces the anxiety around the time constraints. This is another thing that I do on purpose to eliminate a lot of folks who do have test anxiety, and B, to allow you to use your materials that you have baked within the course via your notes, via the journals, right? Um, and it's not as bad as you think it is. I see your hand, Taylor, but just real quick, Jay, you took in my class before. What was your experience with the midterm?
Yeah, it was very, I guess you could say like free too. Like there wasn't too much pressure on it. Me personally, I finished it just like for that day, just because I have a preference of like doing stuff later, but it gives more, I guess, freedom for people that want to do it like spread out, like what you said, do it like one day and then the next day and the next day. And yeah, it's almost like, can't remember it fully, but it's almost like doing a journal a little bit. So it's like a little bit of like, just explaining on like what it is, how you feel about it, stuff like that. I wouldn't take it as much as it like it's just expressing like the knowledge that you know from it. But yeah, no, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad at all.
And I think that's more so what I'm looking for, Tatiana, is you being able to express what you've been able to extract from the course. So it's not like a test in the traditional sense of how you may think about a test. I'm not really into that shit, to be honest with you. I'm only doing these type of things because I have to, right? Like this is not really my point of interest. Taylor, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was gonna say like another thing about like the grading stuff, because I know like a lot of people maybe just aren't the best at tests and stuff. Like I think another thing in the grade that would be like beneficial to a lot of people is like their participation in the class. And I don't know if like the fishbowls go into the grade book, but like, and like I know the fishbowls are like required, so obviously everyone has to do it. But like I think there's some people in the class that obviously talk more than others and like contribute to the conversations more. And I think that would help with like our grades if like people actually participated a lot.
Yes, the fish bowls are graded. In fact, they're 25% of your grade. So I am taking that to an account, and that is a way that you can kind of offset, excuse me, the grades for the midterm. But I think also you're jumping the gun, right? Like you haven't even gave me the chance to get you prepared for the midterm. So once you kind of have that, then you can say, well, shit, nah, this is not that bad, or yes, this was problematic, right? Okay. What's not working for you in the course? What is not working for you in the course? For sake of time, I'm gonna ask that you all, be a little bit more forthcoming and not have me pull teeth. Like if something's not working for you, speak on it so we kind of get things moving.
For me, it's more like when we were reading like the Du Bois reading, it was like there's like long PDF and there is like no specifics on what we're supposed to read. And then yeah, that's like pretty much it. Cause like I read the entire thing and then I didn't know we were just supposed to read that one paragraph. I mean that one chapter.
One chapter, and
Yeah.
let me see something because I do believe, maybe not. You know what? Okay, I'll take that on the chin. I thought I mentioned that in class, but I may not have. I'll make some notes to like put the specified reading. And I think that's the only book where I have the whole book on there. So going forward, that should not be an issue, and I apologize. But some good reading if you read the whole thing, and that may circle back in your future education, right? Anyone else? What is not working for you? Mark, you good?
Yeah. I guess it's just kind of like the same as like what Donald said. Like I'm not a big like reader, but I'm like up for the challenge, of course. But like basically the same as what Donald said earlier. Yeah.
Okay. So same. Um, I'm gonna ask that you, whatever is not clear to you, I'm gonna ask that you write that down, right? And so more so where this question is framing from, what can I do different, right? Like what am I doing that's not working for you? So in Gracio's standpoint, it's like you didn't put what specified reading I need, right? So that shit ain't working for me. I read the whole book for no reason, right? So again, what am I doing? What's going on within my instruction that's not working for you all that could be changed? Muhammad, you have any thoughts on that?
On which question?
I'm sorry?
I said on which question? Question one?
Question two. What is not working for
I think so far everything is good. Just sometimes, like when I do the reading, it's difficult to understand like the whole point behind the reading.
you? Okay. So that's been echoed several times. And again, Muhammad, is not for you to understand everything. It's for you to struggle through it and then come to class and allow me to explain it to you. So let me ask you all this. I'm gonna ask this to everyone. Upon reading the text and then coming to class and hearing my explanation of the text, does it make more sense?
Yeah, a lot more sense.
Okay. That's part of the point, right? But also don't diminish your personal ability to make sense of what you're reading. Do you hear me? So yes, I'm going to make sense of it. That's my job, but also don't downplay your ability to make sense of the reading. Even if you have to read it slowly, that may be what is required. Even if you have to read a piece and then go back and read that piece again, that may be what's required. If you have to go look up a term to understand what's being said, that may be what's required. That's part of being an intellectual. That's part of being a scholar. A lot of this shit I didn't know. I went and go figured it out, right? So that's part of also your responsibility. But if you haven't done so and you haven't got that understanding, is also your responsibility to bring those questions to class. I can't provide you insight that I don't know that you need. My job is to make these things clear to you, right? But you have to let me know what's unclear. So I'm understanding you all are having difficulty with the reading material, but again, that's on purpose. It's not supposed to be easy. Final question before we kind of get to this midterm. What would you like more of? What can I do more of, or what is working that you would like to see more within the course?
You know, I guess this is more of like a personal issue, but
Okay.
it's I feel like when you miss a class, it feels like you're kind of lost in a sense. You know, and I've missed a few classes, and sometimes it's I won't get that clarification on a specific reading, and then I'll be left with my own questions, and I have to try and figure them out. Which in itself is a fun challenge, trying to get a better understanding of the reading through my own processes instead of relying on the explanation and the clarification. But in some cases, it's a lot more difficult than just kind of smacking my head through it.
Hell yeah. So two things, right? Like you're right. It is personal because you've missed class. But two, and this is my responsibility. I need to post the recordings of the class lecture. So what I'm gonna do by the time we get back from break, I'll have those all available to you. That way, if you have missed the course, you could always go back to those recordings and re-get that information. It's just to be honest with you, it's a process. Like I have to, because the files get so long, I have to put it on YouTube. I have to chop it up and then get it up to where it's visible for you all. I just been lagging on doing that. So part of that, Anthony, is me not making those videos available to you. And like I said, I'll spend my spring break making sure that I've gone through that process and getting those videos up so you guys have access to those.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being so honest and up like front about it, you know. Most professors, I feel like it's kind of a struggle sometimes to come to terms with them on something. I appreciate you and the effort that you put in.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep it a being with all y'all all the time. Like I don't know how to do it anyway else, right? Like I'm not gonna come up here in front and like, nah, this is what it is. We're working this shit out as we go out oftentimes. And then just to be real, like, look, 3 different schools, 3 different classes per school. Like I'm human. I'm only gonna be able, there's gonna have some blind spots, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just,
Yeah.
and I ask you all the same grace that you ask of me when it comes time to turn in papers and assignments and shit. Like we haven't done that yet, but I know how students get like, yo, I need an extension, professor. You know what I'm saying? So I ask the same grace of you that I would give me. Any other statements as to what you need more of? All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
I just wanted to add that I would want more of the like the video style when you posted like the black stock market. No, I
Okay.
think it was, yeah, I like that style of learning as well.
Okay. So as we close out the semester, there will be more videos. Um, Part of me not having a lot of videos is also on purpose because as a society, we don't read. Like we just don't, we're an anti-literacy society. And I think that's very problematic, especially as we move deeper into a society who seeks to like minimize access to information. And if you're not willing to go to a book to get information, you'll be very, very manipulated as it pertains to what you know, right? And I don't mean like reading something on Twitter, you know what I'm saying? Because even that is a reduced amount of characters, right? So what that does is it reduces your attention span as it pertains to your capacity to take down information, right? Like it's hard work to be able to sit down and read a book for 2 hours straight, right? It's hard work to kind of train yourself to be able to sit down and write for 4 hours straight, right? So that like that's the extreme of it, but at the same time, we're not even in a space where we can read something for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, right? So part of this is to get you all just to read, like to actually sit down with some shit and read it. You know what I'm saying? Like it forces you to put everything on pause and focus on one thing. And we don't have a lot of mechanisms that make us do that now. Right. Like, and I'll be real, I read with like music on, I listen to instrumentals or something like that because it doesn't impact me obtaining the words. But think about like, what do you do and just focus on that sole thing at one time? Like, think about that. What do any of you do where you focus on one task at a time and nothing else is going on? Probably y'all do homework with music on, TV on, and some more shit, right? Like, we're not trained as a society to just sit and focus on one thing. That's why people have such an aversion to meditation. Think about it. What does meditation force you to do? Sit down and be with yourself. People don't want to do that. So that's part of the reasons there's not a lot of videos also, Andrew, you know? Okay, so this study guide that I'm going to be working from for the rest of class, that is available to you already, is available to you on Canvas. The notion is if you're able to kind of work through this, you'll be able to answer all questions on the midterm. So we could do this a number of ways. You guys can kind of provide me answers to the questions that are posed. That's a way to prep yourselves. I would advise you taking notes of these questions so that way you have somewhat of a study guide for yourself. As I mentioned, it's going to be 5 essay questions. Now, this is not the midterm itself. This is just a study guide, right? So these questions that you see posed here will not be the questions that you see on the midterm. They'll be different. But the idea is if you could answer all of the questions on the study guide, you would have the ability and the capacity to answer any question on the midterm. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about what's been said so far? So we'll have 5 essay questions, and again, you'll be asked to answer 3 of the 5 questions. The midterm will be made available to you on we'll say Thursday. I'll make it available to you Thursday, March 21st. Okay. I'm going to ask that you submit the midterm by Monday, March 25th. So I'll make an adjustment on Canvas as far as the due date, but it'll be available to you. Please write this down so you'll know. It will be available to you for you to start on Thursday, March 21st. The due date for you to submit the midterm will be Monday, March 25th. Okay. So you have the entire day, Monday, to work on it, but it has to be submitted by the end of the day, Monday, March 25th, excuse me, along with your journal. So both the journals and the midterms will be due on March 25th. You would have to submit them electronically, so you do want to type out both the journals and the midterm. It could be a PDF, Word, or Pages file, I believe, that Canvas will submit. You'll be able to submit as. And again, it'll be available on the 21st of March. It will be due on the 25th of March. Are there any questions about the due date? Now, far as preparing yourself for the midterm, outside of the information, right? We'll get to the information in a moment, but far as like mentally preparing yourself, again, my suggestion, take one day and bang out one question. Jay said he did it in one day. If that works for you, that's cool too. Do whatever works best for you. But my suggestion to eliminate the stress and the strain of it is to take one day and dedicate to answering one question. Why people do bad on this midterm? They rush themselves by not giving themselves enough time to do the midterm completely, and they do not read the questions in their entirety. So what happens is they'll answer a portion of the question, not all of the question, causing them to miss points on the question. So for example, if we're looking at the first bullet point, how old are African people? And why is this information significant for understanding history? So right there, there's two questions in that one sentence. Now, the question continues. Name two significant African individuals and their contributions prior to European contact, or European conquest, or the inception of modernity. So within that statement, within that sentence, there's two more questions built in. So for this one bullet point, right, there's a total of 4 sub-questions within this one question. So if you answer one portion of the question and don't answer the second portion of the question, you will not receive full points, right? So another way, give me 1 second. So another way to think about this, exactly how old are African people? 1 point. And why is this information significant for understanding history? 2 points. Name two significant African individuals and their okay, so that's 3 points. So two significant African individuals. So 3 points right there. And their contributions prior to European conquest or the inception of modernity. 4 points, right? So this is a 4-point question. So again, people lose points by not reading the question in its entirety or not giving themselves enough time to answer all 4 questions. So another example of what a question may sound or feel like, right? This is the second bullet point. What is significant about the teachings of Ptah-hotep, the oldest book in the world, as it pertains to understanding who African people truly are? How does the text speak to the values and principles that shaped ancient African societies? So this question is asking you, how does the teachings of Ptah-hotep inform you about who African people are, right? How does the values within the text and the principles within the text, how does that shape the society that produced the text or ascribe to the teachings of the text, right? So again, even within this question, there's multiple layered questions, right? One, to understand how this book explains who African people are. That's one part of the question. How does the text speak to the values and principles that shape the society? That's the second part of the question. So again, I hope you see how each question is going to have multiple layered questions built within it. And this is why I say it may be wise to take one day to answer one question. That way you ensure yourself that you did not miss any aspects of the question. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about what you heard so far? All right. So exactly how old are African people? This is not a rhetorical question. Somebody tell me how old African people are. So there's 3 acceptable answers for how old African people are. There's 3 acceptable answers. 3.2. This is what the remains they found of what they call Lucy, but I gave her the African name Abiomi, right? So we have 3.2. That's one acceptable answer. 7 to 8 million years. Sorry, 3.2 million years. Excuse me, 3.2 million years. 7 to 8 million years. That's the second acceptable answer. 7 to 8 million years. The most accurate answer is unknown. The most accurate answer is unknown. But if you state unknown, you have to include the fact It is unknown because the more they research, the deeper they dig, the older African people get. So again, the three acceptable answers for how old African people are: 3.2 million years, 7 to 8 million years, or the more accurate answer, unknown, due to the fact the more they research, the deeper they dig, the older African people become. Does that make sense? Now, someone named for me an African individual prior to European contact and why that individual is of importance.
Tahotep,
Ptahotep, okay. Why Ptahotep?
because he like the oldest book in the world, and he also like gave like the baseline on how like the African people lived back then.
Okay, absolutely. I'll take that, Anthony. Perfect. Someone else give me another African individual prior to European contact. Think week one's slideshow and lecture.
Narmer.
Narmer, perfect.
Perfect.
He was the first like pharaoh to unify Egypt.
Perfect.
Perfect.
One more, someone else. So just to not belabor time, that slideshow is available on Canvas. It's under week one, the first module, Who Are African People? I would advise you all to revisit that slideshow because a formulation of this question will be on your midterm. So definitely take the time to brush up on that information regarding who African people were prior to European contact. And again, actually, I'll show you. Can y'all see this? Can you see my screen? Okay, so you should be able to find that slideshow here. So I would
So,
definitely, go ahead.
unfortunately, I didn't get into the class for about 2.5 weeks, and so I didn't get any of this. You say it's on Canvas?
Yes, it's on Canvas though. So even if you didn't get to see the lecture like physically, the material itself is on Canvas. So if you click on this link here, it'll open up the slideshow for you. And as you work your way to maybe about the fourth or fifth slide, it'll start to go through who these individuals are. So just pull two of them for your mental, and that way you could use that for your midterm. Does that make sense?
Mansa
Yeah.
Musa would also be another one, right?
Perfect. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And then keep in mind, right, it's a take-home test. So you have the capacity to use your notes and use your references. So even while you're taking the test, if you want to open up that slideshow, that's what it's for. It's an open note, open resource test. Make sense? Okay. So once you identify the two individuals you want to kind of talk about, so we'll say Narmer and Mansa Musa, right? You then must also talk about why their contributions are important, right? So how does Narmer unifying Upper and Lower Egypt, and how is that important to what the world was doing prior to modernity or prior to European conquest, right? How is the wealth of Mansa Musa relevant to the world prior to Europeans taking over all the wealth, right? So you have to be able to add that layer of analysis to these individuals because that's also a foundational component of the question. Does that make sense? All right. So thinking about the teachings of Ptahotep, right? What were some of the values and what were some of the principles that you can recall from that book, the teachings of Ptahotep?
Pretty much showed us how to like live a good life, like by not like any confrontation you make with anyone, just like settle it out like peacefully. It also taught us how to like value the women in society, right? As like like to treat them good and like how to like live in your household with a woman and your family and all that.
Okay. So some of the values that Anthony points us to is maintaining peace, right? So if you meet a disputant in the heart of action, in the heat of argument, excuse me, and he is your equal, fold your hands and bow your back. If you meet a disputant in the heat of an argument who is your superior, fold your hands and bend your back. If you meet a disputant who is beneath you in the heat of an argument, fold your arms and bend your back. In other words, in any type of dispute, don't be the aggressor, be the one who remains quiet. That's how you maintain peace, right? They talk about the values and the importance of listening. Let me teach the hearers, the words of those who have listened to the ways of the gods. So hearing and listening becomes foundationally important. This idea of the metu nefer, the medu nefer, MDWNFR, good speech. So when I talk to you, let me do it in a way that makes you feel good, that empowers you, that is upful, that is truthful. This is how you maintain a society that does not have strife. These are the values of the ancient kinetic society based on the teachings of Ptahhotep. So then you must think about and be able to apply these values and think about how it begins to then shape the society that abided by these values. So if this is what the desire was, right, to not be strifeful, to speak to one another in a way that is good, to maintain peace in the heat of the argument, then what does that say about that society? And you have to begin to be able to make those connections to effectively answer that question. Are there any questions about these two bullet points that we covered under the title, Who Are African People? There any questions, comments, or concerns as it pertains to this section? So again, this is your opportunity to prepare yourself for the midterm. If you do not take advantage of this opportunity, that's on you, not me. So are there any questions about anything that we've mentioned or covered in this first section? All right, we'll move on to this next bullet point with the time we have left. We'll probably just be able to get through this one. But I'm gonna need to hear from you more because this is your test, not mine. I wrote this motherfucker, so I know it's on here. What is the thesis for Harris's text? The chapter in particular, a tradition of myths and stereotypes. Be able to engage Harris's assertion of European expansion's greatest contribution to the New World. Think about the role religion, in particular Christianity, has played in shaping the view and image of African people. Be prepared to engage a discourse on the role some scholars play in trying to diminish African contributions to human civilizations by displacing Kemet out of Africa. So this one question is a lot to unpack, right? This is again why I say be sure to take your time and give yourself time to answer all of the questions. So first, thinking about the reading of myths and stereotypes, right? And we read this after the teachings of Ptahhotep. What would you argue is the thesis? What is the main points of that reading? What is the main argument that the author is trying to make within that reading of myths and stereotypes? What would be a good idea is to have your journals handy and bust out them journals and state for me what you stated as your thesis.
That the African culture has significantly been impacted by Western media slash culture in a negative way that we see in today's world due to these like the scholars and everyone else back then.
Okay. The only thing I would add to that, Anthony, is because keep in mind what the title of the chapter is, right? Or the title of the text, excuse me, right? Their history. So you want to incorporate at some capacity the history of it, because really what the author is arguing, right, from historical analysis, like looking at history to show how these stereotypes and how these myths get created, right? And he's pointing back to history to provide us examples of how we begin to understand Black folks as being inferior, right? And he's arguing is through these myths and stereotypes that were produced historically, right, back in the day, that
So
time.
like the Book of Ham.
Yes, exactly, right? This is
Oh, so okay,
historical
so we would
reference.
have to. Okay.
So I'm just saying, like your thesis is good, but what I did not hear in that is the importance of history, right? You want to be able to incorporate that into how you're thinking about what Harris is up to. Okay. So we kind of got a notion of what the thesis is, right? So it's also asking you to be able to engage the assertion. So Harris, the author, makes the claim that European expansion's greatest contribution to the New World, right? So you have to know what he argues is that greatest contribution. So pulling from the text, this is at the top of page 11. It says it must be, sorry, the bottom of page 10 going to the top of page 11. It must be emphasized, therefore, that one of the greatest contributions Europeans made to the New World was the expansion and entrenchment of the concept of Black inferiority. So the greatest contribution that the Harris argues that the Europeans made to the New World is the expansion and the entrenchment, right? Like to be able to solidify, right? To be able to make this idea resonate and make people believe it, right? So that's what he means when he says the entrenchment of the concept of Black inferiority. So you have to be able, so what my question is asking you, right? Be able to engage, you have to be able to talk about, you have to be able to think about this claim. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Right? If you disagree, provide evidence as to why you disagree. If you agree, speak to the power of Harris's claim. I agree with this claim because he provide evidence through things like the curse of Ham, right? Through things like the myth of black being bad luck, right? So just be able to speak to the reasons why you agree or disagree. This is what I mean when I say engage, right? Think about, contemplate. Also within that, right, there's really no right or wrong answer. All I'm asking you to think about this claim. That's all I'm asking you to do. So within that, do know that you don't have really an ability to make the wrong answer unless you don't answer it, right? I'm simply asking you to think about this. Think about the role religion, and I'm thinking Christianity in particular, has played in shaping the view and image of African people. So be able to talk about the role religion played in shaping the view of African people. And again, no particular answer, but I'm asking you to be able to, on paper, show me how you're thinking about this.
So, Professor,
Yeah.
some of the, I did not read this text here, Africans in their history.
Okay.
This is on the canvas as well.
Yes, so that one will be for
What
week
week?
week 3, excuse me, the top a tradition of myths and stereotypes.
Okay, so I have a kind of like a statement. I guess probably prior to this guy writing this here, there was already some history. Before the world or the land, the earthquakes and the dividing of the ocean came, how the creation of man, and it's been truth that unproven that the people or the human being originated from Africa and was of color in Africa, seeing the environment and the way it was there, the temperature. However, what doesn't connect the dots with some of these here is that how these same African people, or they from Africa, travel among the lands across all the lands prior to the parting of the ocean cames and the ice age, and how some of these people got stuck and what have you. And so this is like almost explaining the theory of from the darkness came the light.
In a sense, but I think where he more focuses on is like, how do we go from where you're talking about Don to having this belief that African people are inferior? So what he's doing is picking up where you left off, and kind of making us aware of what the European power structure have done to shift the way that we look at Black folks.
Okay.
And, yeah, and I think
In a documented way.
yes, yes. Yep,
Yeah.
and he's tracing essentially that history, right? And that's what the text becomes about. What we'll do is we'll put a pause on it here. We'll pick up on Wednesday covering the destruction of Black civilization. Well, we'll end with this last question on. We'll begin. Excuse me. We'll begin with this last question on Wednesday. Pick up on Williams, going to Van Sertima, and then we'll get into Du Bois, and that will. Yeah, we didn't do the Ida B. Wells, so we won't deal with that. We'll finish with Du Bois. So that's what will be the game plan for Wednesday. I advise you all to bring your journals on Wednesday. Two, just to help in the sense of time, right? You have this available. Look through the study guide. Look at your journal. Whatever things don't seem clear or you don't feel like you can answer, write that down and come to class on Wednesday so we can make sure to crystallize these things for you. So that way you know you're walking away with your question answered. I can do the best that I can to address this comprehensively, but there may be specified questions that you have based on your notes and your journal. So be prepared to bring those to class on Wednesday. Are there any last minute questions, comments, or concerns for me?